Let's start off on your thoughts on this BITO short Bitcoin fund getting all of that volume. I mean, is the bottom in or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty funny. We've had this
Oh,
huge decline over the past month or so, couple months, and now
I
they're
don't hear
launching a
Brad.
short fund. So, I mean, I guess here at 20,000, if you're going short, you're betting it's going to go even lower. And I mean, as you said, our reporter, Chris Shondor reporting today that some people are seeing this as a bottom with signal potentially, and in kind of a gallows humor, ironic market kind of way, but it's not without precedent because actually last year when they launched what has become the biggest long Bitcoin fund, the ProShares BITO fund by the same sponsor, that was right around when we hit the all-time high. So everybody who piled into that lost. So maybe if you pile into the short fund here, you're going to lose. But yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people are obviously looking here to short even at this level.
I guess the big question among many folks is, could we go lower? And we saw a weekly change of Bitcoin not really doing much.
Absolutely. I mean, I think probably if you really step back and look at it, it's kind of a miracle we're here at 21,000, given, everything we've seen this week in the industry. I mean, it is pretty brutal out there in terms of the news.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these big firms that appear to be suffering from liquidity crises. And
We also have a new
well,
article out by CoinDesk showing that GBTC, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, is narrowing. What does that tell us? And just to note for folks, Grayscale is a sister company to CoinDesk.
yeah, again, I mean, that is a strangely bullish signal for a couple of reasons. Number one, it may show that people are trying to bottom tick this market. And, if you're going to buy Bitcoin, you're just going to buy Bitcoin. But if you're a stock investor and you just want to bet on Bitcoin, yeah, you might pick up some of that GBT shares at this lower level, and it's at a discount. And so the fact that that discount is narrowing might show that stock investors are actually turning bullish on Bitcoin. But in general, they also might be betting on the SEC approving the Bitcoin, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust getting converted into an exchange traded fund. And that would mean, well, I don't know if that would mean that would mean any more Bitcoin buying pressure because they're just converting that, but it might actually just kind of be a bullish sign if the SEC is going to allow stock investors to kind of freely start picking up a Bitcoin through the ETF.
What do you make of
That's the
Fed
way. That's
Chair?
the. Yeah.
What do you make of Fed Chair Jerome Powell's testimony before the Banking Committee down in D.C. this week? He was saying that a recession is possible, and what impact do you think his remarks have or will have on the market? Is that already priced in?
Well, we talked about this earlier this week. In the topsy-turvy market logic, the more, he uses the R word, recession, the more bullish things get, because really what he's signaling is that the Federal Reserve's getting worried, and that means they may take their foot off the brakes. Here they are trying to stop inflation, and so they're tightening monetary policy to slow down the economy. But if we're going to a recession, they're going to take the brakes off. And that means, money printer go burr, or at least that's the way it'll be viewed kind of in the Bitcoin market. And so, and that's also the way it's viewed in the stock market. So if stocks go up, Bitcoin goes up, everything's okay again. It doesn't make any
Right.
sense, but that is the way the markets think.
Well, at least looking at the crypto industry, we're seeing Celsius, Three Arrows Capital, Babel Finance, they've all suspended customer assets. There's FTX has offered basically bailouts, the $200 million credit to and above to Voyager Digital as well as BlockFi. And in fact, now FTX is negotiating with BlockFi for a stake in the company. Other So that, I guess the question is, if there's going to be another problem, in the days, week to come of another lender or exchange that's in a broker that's in trouble. We do see that Coinbase has been downgraded by Moody's because of their debt on profitability concerns. Coinbase users in the Netherlands are facing additional KYC hurdles when pulling crypto off platform, which always makes folks nervous. And by contrast, we're seeing Binance US, they're cutting trading fees for spot Bitcoin trades between the US dollar and stablecoins. And they're saying that they won't bail out any crypto firms. So just kind of being frugal and I guess getting a win out of this. And I don't know, Christy, what kind of lessons does this teach us, if any?
Well, here's the thing that I think that people sometimes lose sight of. And what we need to be cognizant of is the fact that the latest failing in DeFi, largely, is not the same thing as a failure of Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin has dropped dramatically from its highs in the 60,000s, but that's not because the technology has failed. What we're seeing is a conflagration of the markets, both traditional and crypto, and they all have knock-on effects when it comes to the price of Bitcoin. So this weekend, our research analyst, George Kaludis, as I keep saying, he'll be discussing in detail the distinction between protocol risks and platform risks, but also how these risks are intertwined in his Crypto Long and Short newsletter that comes out Sunday. Much of the trouble that we're seeing stems from protocol failures in various DeFi projects. That has been the root of a lot of this trouble. That is, the tech broke in some way, whether because of an exploit or a scam or a hack that the code did not sufficiently protect its users against. And when that kind of protocol failure happens, people lose a lot of money. So can big institutional investors, and they have to make up their shortfalls and shore up their balance sheets somehow. Then you have cases of platforms suffering failures, these investment platforms largely. And they have a lot of problems, and people lose their funds that way too. They get locked up or they get dispersed to other places other than your wallet. And all of this combines with a general loss of confidence in the crypto market to have an effect on Bitcoin. And we saw this, but we've seen this before in other down cycles. For example, the last one, 2017, 2018, at the end of the ICO boom and bust. People lost a lot of money when all those tokens were labeled as unregistered securities and the projects failed and the price of Bitcoin dropped. But in neither instance, not then and not now, did the Bitcoin protocol suffer a technical failure. Rather, Bitcoin has historically built up and grown as a protocol between the bull markets when the price is down. It is even now still working exactly as planned. TikTok next block. Sure, the miners are taking a hit with the drop in price, but we're also seeing a remarkably high hash rate. Hash rate among known mining pools is still over 200 exahashes per second, up 25% from 18 months ago, before last year's infamous mining ban. And the difficulty decreased last week, but only slightly, like 2%. So in other words, the protocol, the Bitcoin tech itself, is as strong as ever. And as we saw at Consensus 2022 and the Bitcoin Plus Plus conference in Austin just a couple weeks ago, Bitcoin developers are still heads down working hard at improving that code. And that's something we all have to keep in mind when we see all of these prices go all over the place.
Absolutely. The other day, we had Chainalysis on talking about how, this resulted from a bubble of centralized exchanges, centralized entities investing in these lending platforms and in DeFi and each like trying to get greater yield. And when that eventually, that bubble kind of burst from the DeFi top, it just kind of trickled down to all these centralized entities. And that has had an impact on the price of Bitcoin. But as you mentioned, Bitcoin, the protocol, the network remains stronger than ever.